Jeremy Irons, Glenn Close, and Meryl Streep star in The House of the Spirits, next on Starz.
If you're looking for great entertainment, then wait until you see Starz and Encore in March. Starz. Movies from the 90s, every night.
What a pleasure it is.
And Encore. Hit movies from the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
I wish you could see it.
Don't miss a great entertainment lineup in March on Starz and Encore. 2 great channels, 1 low price. Exclusively on Starz this month.
He's weird, he's sloppy. I can't believe I haven't slept with him yet.
I lost my job.
Why did you get a job at Burgerama?
I was valedictorian of my university.
I'm not going to work at the Gap, for Christ's sake.
Don't miss Winona Ryder, Ethan Hawke, and Ben Stiller in Reality Bites, exclusively on Starz.
Wow.
This month. Exclusively on Starz. Schindler's List, a masterwork measured against any standard, destined to have a permanent place in memory. It's completely absorbing at every single moment. An extraordinary film. The best picture of the year, Schindler's List. Watch the most talked about film in recent history. Exclusively on Starz this month.
The following feature is rated R.
John Huston was the original director on this film, but he was fired by David O. Selznick one day before they started the shooting because he took out portions of Ben Hecht's script that were not in the novel. Selznick was absolutely furious because the new material that he cut out featured Mrs. Selznick. That would do it. The more amiable Charles Vidor took over, and he stayed on for the grueling 6 months that this thing took to film. As a producer, Selznick was famous for all those memos that he used to send people and his meticulous attention to detail, which drove some of the people crazy. One of the memos he sent, for example, was to Rock Hudson. It said, "Your Adam's apple wasn't made up." I know that sounds silly, but that's a really important thing, especially if it's jumping up and down all the time. You got to put makeup on it. He was really into this movie. One day he was so absorbed in what he was thinking of, whatever it was, that he walked straight into a wall to the delight of the entire company, and he didn't even know he did it. A Farewell to Arms was David O. Selznick's biggest and last production. Now let's look at this.
Next on AMC, Yvonne De Carlo is the inspiration for a beautiful opera in Song of Scheherazade, co-starring Jean-Pierre Aumont. Next on AMC.
Rimsky-Korsakov was Russia's first great symphonic composer and a noted conductor and teacher as well. He was born in St. Petersburg in the middle of the 1800s, and after training as a naval officer, a tradition of the family, he was to write his first full-fledged symphony ever written by a Russian composer. He was only 21 years old at the time. Now, he would go on to compose some very inspired and instantly recognizable music. Some might not know the titles. Of course, some would. The Flight of the Bumblebee is one everybody remembers. Fandango, Capriccio Espagnol, and Song of Scheherazade, which happens to be the title of the movie we're about to see. Now, the picture is loosely, I should underline that, very loosely based on the life of the great Rimsky-Korsakov. Like his inspiration, for example, for the Song of Scheherazade was beautiful Yvonne De Carlo, who plays a sultry dancer that he meets when his ship stops off in Morocco. I don't think it really happened that way, but it's a great story. Rimsky-Korsakov is played by Jean-Pierre Aumont, who had a very solid 45-year career playing handsome romantic leads with a continental flair. While you're watching him in this movie, by the way, speaking of Continental, see if you can imagine him as Victor Laszlo in Casablanca. He very nearly got that part, and then Paul Heinrich came along, and that was that. Here he is with Yvonne DiCarlo, Eve Arden, and Brian Donlevy, who does very well in this film, in The Song of Scheherazade. That big barrel chest of his always came in handy for Brian Donlevy. After he had spent World War I as a pilot with the famous Lafayette Escadrille, he returned to civilian life as a model for shirts. That's where the chest thing started. He made his acting debut with a walk-on, shirtless, of course, in a Broadway play. That was back in 1923. And then he landed a small part in a New York-made film, and his career was on the way. In 1947, the year he appeared in this movie, The Song of Scheherazade, he made no less than 5 movies. Well, they used to make a lot of movies in those days of the contract players. Along the way, he carved out a nice niche for himself. By the time he'd reached this point in his film career, mostly as a tough guy villain, like the sadistic sergeant that he played in Beau Geste. In his prime, this was back in the early 1940s, he was seen in several classic motion pictures. I mean, it's quite a long list. Dusty Rides Again, The Glass Key, Miracle of Morgan's Creek, and The Great McGinty. Now let's take a look at this.
Next on AMC, Jennifer Jones gives an Academy Award-winning performance as a peasant girl who sees a vision from heaven in The Song of Bernadette. Next on AMC.
This Friday on AMC, make a date with Kate. She's charming.
When anyone dances as beautifully as you do, conversation's hardly necessary, is it?
She's ambitious.
I'll play any part that appeals to me for $20.
She's
What kind of girl are you?
I'm just me.
the one and only Katharine Hepburn in some of her most memorable performances.
Calla lilies are in bloom again.
Make a date with Katharine Hepburn this Friday all day and all night beginning at 6 a.m. Eastern, only on AMC.
There were giants of the West, proud names like Shane, men of character living rugged times and moments of greatness. Now another name takes its place beside them. Will Penny, starring Charlton Heston.
You ain't seen the last of me!
Will Penny, grizzled, tough, a loner. A name deeply etched into the hard land that bred hard men like himself. Bigger inside than the violent life he endured in the vast West as it really was.
You ain't fighting proper!
You're the one that's down.
These times, Bossius.
In the classic mold, in the tradition of the great Westerners, Will Penny takes his place now, tall and proud. His is the moving story of a lonely line rider in a world as tough as the Longhorns and the Wranglers who made it their own.
Ain't no need for you to tell us them lies.
Son, you dealt this hand. I guess you'll just have to play it out.
Hold it! All of you. Any eyeballing done around here, I'll do it.
Will Penny, who lived a life of bitter winters, blazing summers, and vicious men.
That's him, all right.
He ain't going nowhere we can find him. And we just gonna take our own good time about carving him up.
Until he met a woman and a boy, both as lonely and full of longing as himself.
Don't come any nearer. This thing may go off. How many people have you shot?
Well, I guess there was a few times.
How did it feel?
Bad. Bad scared before and bad sorry after. You got a way of making a man feel like he's a man. Reckon it's just a case of too soon old and too late smart.
Look at him. You'd never know he could love just as hard as he could hate.
Merry Christmas!
up slow, but when he gets there, he's hell with a hide-off. Charlton Heston, unforgettable as the character he creates joins the great ones, turning a frontier into a legend. Will Penny.
Presentation of Academy Awards, the Oscars, the great day of the year in Hollywood. And producer Darryl Zanuck wins the honors for the best production of the year, Gentleman's Agreement.
I'm very proud to be here tonight. I want to thank Laura Hobson for writing a book. I want to thank Moss Hart for his screenplay.
Best Director of the Year, Elia Kazan of 20th Century Fox, who directed Gentleman's Agreement. The Oscar for the Best Actress goes to Loretta Young. Those much-coveted Academy Awards are presented one after another. Ronald Colman, whom the Committee of Judges has selected as the Best Actor of the Year. Then an Oscar for Celeste Holm. She wins the acclaim as the Best Supporting Actress.
Ladies and gentlemen, I had thought before tonight that I had already received the greatest reward that an actress can have, which is to play a part in a picture in which one so wholeheartedly believes as Gentleman's Agreement. Thank you, everybody, for making this happen.
Best Supporting Actor, Edmund Gwenn of The Miracle on 34th Street.
Now I know there's a Santa Claus.
For 67 years, these 4 words have held millions on the edge of their seats. Now, before the envelopes are opened, join AMC in a month-long tribute to the highest in motion picture achievement, the Academy Awards. See the stars and the movies we've adored, admired, and bestowed with the title, The Best. It's our Academy Award Winners celebration, all month long, only on AMC.
The golden age of Hollywood. There's never been anything like it before or since. It was a time when stars were larger than life, a glamorous era of big studios, adoring fans, and intriguing behind-the-scenes stories. You can still experience these legendary times in AMC magazine. Each issue features stories of the biggest stars, including spectacular photos. And you'll never search for a classic movie, because AMC's program listings are included, with descriptions of every classic movie and original production. There's also Movie Palace Memories, a look at America's majestic theaters. Plus, AMC host Bob Dorian shares the inside stories of each month's featured movies. There's even a column where you can write to Bob with your questions. To order AMC magazine and save 50% off the cover price, call 1-800-535-7700. Use your Visa or MasterCard, or send a check or money order for $12.95 to this address. AMC Magazine, where the golden age of Hollywood lives on.
In celebration of Jennifer Jones' birthday, we have 2 wonderful films for you today on AMC. During World War II, the writer Fritz Werfel was in trouble. The Nazis had targeted his work as decadent. And he was living in a territory that was occupied by the German army. And, to top it all off, he had Jewish parents. Well, of course, he had to escape. Always on the run, he made his way across Europe, fleeing from one safe hiding place to the next. And his last sanctuary, it turned out, was in a French town called Lourdes. And during his stay there, he was exposed to the story of Bernadette, a young French girl who became part of the great miracle. What Werfel vowed to write her story if he were ever able to escape to safety, which of course he did. He finally made it to the United States in 1941, where he immediately locked himself away in a house in the Hollywood Hills, and 3 months later emerged with the first draft of a novel called The Song of Bernadette. Producer William Perlberg bought the film rights before the book was even published. Because there was still a war on, of course, The Song of Bernadette had to be completely filmed in Hollywood. They couldn't go to Europe. The town of Lourdes, therefore, and the adjacent grotto were constructed on a Fox lot that had once been a golf course. There's a river that flows past Lourdes in France, so a river was dug and filled with water to flow past the golf course, Lourdes. The studio wanted the details in the film to be as accurate as they possibly could get them, but because of the war, it was very difficult to get any information from France. A convent of the Sisters of Charity in Britain helped out with patterns for the sister's habit that Bernadette wears. As for Jennifer Jones herself, this was her first starring role, and she won an Oscar in the doing. Here she is in a beautiful motion picture. Charles Bickford and Vincent Price are the co-stars in The Song of Bernadette.